That's fair. Let's go back to court now in the investigative reporter murder trial, where the defense has now begun its opening statement.
You know, Her Honor had said this morning that the defense may make an opening statement. You discussed yesterday and the day before that the defense may sit, not say a single word, not even ask a single question, not present a single piece of evidence, and be entitled to a verdict of not guilty. Oftentimes, defense attorneys, in presumably at the get-go appear to be tough cases, sit back, wait. Attempt to poke holes at the state's case as it's presented, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stand before you today and tell you what this case is about. You know, Her Honor said this morning when she instructed you that it's upon you and you alone to make inferences from the evidence in this case. And when the evidence is complete and the evidence is closed, we're going to ask you to do that. This case is entitled The State of Nevada versus Robert Tellis. But let's talk just a little bit about Mr. Tellis. He's a family man, married, 3 children. He's a loving father and husband. He's a self-made man. He applied to our law school here, UNLV, and worked doing air conditioning, HVAC. It's a hard way to make a living, put himself through school. In addition to supporting his family and being engaged at school, he became the president of the University Bar. It's basically the student body president of his law school. He ran his own probate firm for 3 years and was named Pro Bono Attorney of the Year by the Nevada Legal Services in 2016. He ran for the Office of Public Administrator and was elected in 2019. He was determined at that point in time to clean up the office of the Public Administrator's office. He went in that office with a goal and with a mission. And as we had spoken briefly through the process of jury selection, he kind of upset the apple cart. He started eliminating unnecessary overtime. He wanted the office to run more efficiently. In some cases, we had public employees that are paid by our tax dollars reporting 40-plus hours per week of overtime. And let me tell you, his changes to this office were not received well, and that created this hostile work environment. As a result of this hostility, reports were made, as they should be. Obviously, our public and our duly elected officials should be looked upon. Comes with the job. In Mr. Gehrman's first report, it states, among the changes, Tellis has said he made our closing estate cases faster and cutting back on large amounts of tax-funded overtime employees are getting under Cahill. He provided a document that showed one veteran employee received more than $140,000 in overtime between 2017 and 2018. That was on the top of the employee's combined $150,000 regular salary for those years. The employee overtime dropped to roughly $13,500 in 2020, which you can see is a substantial reduction, according to the document. Nicole Lofton, in a state coordinate for the past year, said the old guard acts like a little gang and has tried to isolate her. Lofton said she has suffered from migraines and from stress. They told me from the beginning to pick a side, she said, adding that Tellis does everything he can to help her succeed while the other group wants her to fail. Again, that was the source, that was the seed of this hostile, allegedly hostile work environment. After being duly elected, Mr. Tellis also began evaluating the ethics of the office's relationship with third-party vendors. And you're going to hear that through the course of this case because perhaps the state wants to make things simpler. This was part of the facts and the evidence from which you will be called upon to draw inferences. He set out to identify the suspicious nature of businesses conducted by outside facilitators of administration operating under the Independent Administrations Act. And we need to just discuss this a little bit, because the RJ did a very good job of following up on this and reporting these problems. You have people who die. They don't have wills, they may not have heirs, they may not have estates. And unfortunately for them, their legacy is stolen by these third parties. Generally, if a person dies intestate, it goes to the public administrator's office, and they deal with the affairs, which often involves the sale of homes. Under this Independent Administrations Act, there are third parties who would come in, oftentimes with no announcement to the family members, take the properties, devalue the properties, and then turn around and sell them, and then to a straw buyer, and ultimately sell them again and make millions of dollars. Robert Tellis was determined to stop that, regardless of the consequences. What we saw here.
All right, so we're getting a little bit of a glimpse so far. Not much, mostly more about his background as a do-gooder and somebody who's out there with an ethical approach to things. Let's bring in our guest here to discuss, federal trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg. And when I think about it, it makes sense. I know, first of all, you want to let the jury know your guy's a good guy. But also, you've got all these articles out there written by this victim that they're going to get a chance to look at and read. He's got to kind of address that as well.
I agree with you. He's doing a really good job making him out to be this great person who is on a crusade to get rid of corruption. And we are getting a little glimpse in the fact that there's probably going to be some evidence put on that it was somebody else and it was related to maybe one of these vendors that was not so happy about it. It's like a crime novel, really, if he's going to go down that route.
And, one of the things, though, that I thought was a good approach to take by the defense is to say, this is why there was a hostile work environment. It wasn't because he was doing anything wrong, but rather he was trying to do everything right. He was eliminating unnecessary overtime, of course. And do you think, does a jury, do you think, watch him and weigh that description of such a positive, good person against the person sitting at the defense table that I would argue, given the expression on his faces, some may be questioning whether or not they're believing him?
Well, he does look like he's almost in pain while he's sitting there. And then the body language of having the hand over the mouth. His attorney might want to discuss with him how he is visually presenting and those little signs of how a jury could definitely interpret that. His body language isn't open. He's not, he's not sitting there really as appearing as that do-gooder, but rather as someone who, has something to hide.
Yes.
You have to tell him that, there's nothing you can do about his face, but a lot of people online don't like his face. They just think he looks like somebody who's capable of this. But Alexis, at the end of the day, as a defense representing this guy, they're going with this frame-up argument, and we all know how difficult that is to prove. I don't know exactly what evidence they have of it, but do you think if you're arguing frame-up and you don't have great evidence, is it a good idea to come with a frame-up claim and just say, hey, this is all a frame-up without strong evidence to back it up?
Well, I think this defense attorney has kind of been cornered based on what we've heard in opening. It appears that the forensic evidence is very strong. I mean, we have a video of his car, we have the shoe, we have the bag, we have the hat. I mean, what else is he going to come out with? He's got to present some sort of defense.
But he must have something, Michael. If he didn't have something, I don't think they'd make that claim. So I'm looking forward to hearing in this trial how they cross-examine witnesses and what they try to present as evidence. I'm
interested in the rest of his closing and see exactly what he's going to tell this jury, what on the trip he's going to take them as far as
and what the evidence is going to show from the defense perspective. All right, thank you so much, Alexis Rosenberg, for joining us tonight.
All right, folks, stick around. Court is still in session in the investigative reporter murder trial. We're going to get you back to court right after the break, so keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.